that, right? Because they're also disappearing people in our communities. But guess what? Those people are going to Texas and Washington. They do this, and it's all intentional, for two reasons. One, you're further from your family. And two, you're further from a lawyer you might know. That's the reason why they do this. That's the reason why many of the people, not all the people, many of the people at the Aguilar detention facility are not from California. And so that's the concern that I have, one of the many concerns that I have. As far as conditions, it is not ideal. They have some access, they have some iPad time, they can contact family and lawyers if they have them. If they don't have a lawyer, it is very, very hard to try to find a lawyer, pro bono. But there are some resources, limited resources that they have for it. It is not ideal conditions, and many of them have been there a long time waiting for their court cases to be adjudicated. And sometimes the federal government is moving them around facilities to make it more difficult, obviously. So I don't love Adelanto. I feel that the facility and private prisons in general should go away. I appreciate the work that the people there are doing, though. They are good people from Experian, Big Desert, the folks I talk to, but they've got a really rough mission, and I think that facility has kind of run its course, and I'm going to do everything I can to bring more transparency to it. I think Judy Chu was there earlier this week. I saw online, and I'll continue to do my part to hold them accountable too.
All right, thank you. And so we have some questions about the big ugly bill. You talked about it a little bit. So Jason from Cathedral City, well, first he wants to know, what is it that Republicans say behind closed doors about that bill? Is that something that you can share with us?
The uniting force, you have to understand, Republicans though, at least at the national level, and some of our local Republicans aren't like this. And some of them we know and we're friends with, and they're elected in local things, or we see them in our communities. Right? California Republicans are a little different. The national folks,
Except for Fontana,
they're guided truly by one very important thing, and it is lower taxes for the rich. Yeah. And so anything that fits within that, they will be supportive of. And the consequences, they don't mind the consequences of people having less to put food on their table, less health care. Oftentimes they don't mind that. They are guided, that is their ideology. That is who they are. Sometimes behind closed doors, they'll say that they wish it could be better, or they're a little upset, or they'll whisper that they don't like how the president's doing something, one thing, little thing. But none of them, to a person, will ever stand up to it. And none of them will say, none of them will use the power that they have, right, their vote, to say, change this, don't hurt people, and I'll support the bill, right? They just don't do that. They don't have the spine to do it. And some of them, they're afraid for political reasons. They're afraid that someone even further to the right of them will run and take them out. Some of them are afraid that the president will tweet about them. And keep in mind, he has tweeted specifically about members, Republican members, and they get death threats, like on day one about that. And so some of that is well-founded. But they are just fearful, and they're afraid to use their voice and the leverage that they have and the vote that they have. And so that's why I got no room for it. They can say whatever they want in the elevator, and it's all happy talk, because when push comes to shove, we know that they're going to support the president and his agenda.
The other thing about the other thing from that bill, and you talked about it a little bit, is how so much money is going to ICE. But something that we don't always understand is it legal for what ICE is doing, that the police force is so large that armed forces are coming into our cities. We haven't seen this, and so we're not sure if it's even legal.
We've never seen this. I mean, there are rules for the military, posse comitatus, and there are different rules and laws that apply to the military. And so that's why it is controversial when the president called out the military and the Guard to LA. But as far as ICE, I mean, they are unchecked. Now, the constraint that they have is they can't hire fast enough. And so I do think that one of the things the president will do next is he'll start to waive some of the roadblocks that exist. And by the way, let's talk about those roadblocks. One of them is a polygraph. Passing a polygraph, that is one of the biggest hurdles and barriers to ICE hiring more people. And so they have to pass a polygraph. So I would anticipate that, you know, at some point soon enough, he's gonna start waiving these rules and allowing them to be even more unchecked. As far as, and we see that there are different rules for different states, and that's just who Donald Trump is. You live in a blue state, and Donald Trump is acting like that. And so it's not lost on any of us what is happening. He is doing this to New York and California. He wants the chaos machine to continue to carry forward. He wants people disappeared off of streets. And there's no rule book on how they're doing this. And they said, all we know is what they campaigned on, that they're going after violent criminals, and the data doesn't back that up. The data shows that they're lying. And so we have to call them out. We have to call them out and continue to remind people all the lies that he said. Remember, he would lower costs on day one as well? Jobs going down, costs going up. Every metric that you see on the economy is tanking. Donald Trump's economy is hurting people. And that is still the number one thing that people are concerned about, is their own economic well-being. We in this room get to talk about redistricting reform, we talk about all these other things because that's who we are. We want government to work. But keep in mind, a lot of the people in our communities, a lot of the people here in San Bernardino and around this county, they're just trying to get by. They're just trying to get by. They just want to take their kids to school. They just want to go to work their shift. They want their rent not to go up 15% a year. They want groceries not to skyrocket. They want tariffs not to disrupt them buying, you know, something that they need. That's just what they want. And under the Donald Trump economy and this chaos machine, all of those costs are going up. And so let's just continue to make that the important issue, to let people know that we understand it, and that we'll have a better alternative because it's not enough just to say, you know, we're not Donald Trump. We have to have an affirmative agenda on lower costs, improve the safety of our communities, and bring about positive change.
Can we talk about tariffs?
Yeah.
Because a lot of us are confused about tariffs. Okay, so tariffs are tax on the consumers. Is that right, or do we have that wrong?
Well, the president doesn't think so, but that's right. What happens is, this is revenue that the importers, the people who pay for the goods to come off of the ship, right? And that could be Costco, or that could be a small business. There have been a couple that have reached out to us from San Bernardino County who do this, who import things. They are the ones who pay the duty to customs. And so when Donald Trump raises these up and down, sometimes there are goods that are traversing their way across the Pacific Ocean, and they left under one set of rules, and they arrive under another set of rules. And so that duty, that dollar amount is paid by the importers to the government. So Donald Trump is saying, this is my extra piggy bank, and look, we're receiving all this revenue. Well, the importers then, all they do is they pass that cost on to you and me. Whether you're buying equipment for your backyard, you're buying, you know, pool supplies or a lawnmower, or a car or a big expense, or food. All of those costs go up. So all he's doing is passing on more taxes to working people. and it's going in and it's creating this slush fund. Now, real people are getting hurt by this, and there are times in which Donald Trump is throwing them a lifeline, but it's generally farmers who are getting crushed by this. And so they're creating separate funds and they're cutting checks to farmers from the new money that they're receiving. And that's just wrong, it's unsustainable, right? But he's trying to buy his help and support, he's trying to buy some love and attention from some of these folks who are being impacted. But you and me, we're paying these higher costs, he's not helping us out one bit. And so all of this, a tariff is a tax. A tariff is a tax that all of us are gonna pay. We may pay it in 6 weeks when those goods come to the shelf, or we might pay it tomorrow. But that's what the chaos is doing.
And are these tariffs, they're legal? It's legal for him to do what he's doing?
Yeah, I mean, there are some mechanisms that he's doing that we are challenging in court, but I mean, at its core, yes, this is a legal mechanism that he can do. He has wide latitude to do this. Some of the countries he's picking though, right, when he did pick Mexico and Canada, and he said it was because of the fentanyl crisis and all of this, right, like that can be challenged, and that is wrong. But many of these he has the ability to do.
So, is this something that, so who do we complain to? What can we do? Is
They're
this?
doing it now. But this is why, and this is why there were two, again, I'm in the code of honesty here. I know there's probably cameras rolling, people think, but I'm gonna be super honest with you. Republicans were winning on two issues last election day, and it's the reason why we lost the election. They were winning on the economy, and they were winning on immigration. Both of those issues now, by the way, they are underwater. And because the public is realizing, wait, you're not doing what you said you were gonna do. And in fact, Donald Trump's approval rating at 38% is the lowest it's been since the insurrection. And so that's the only thing I think that is going to, public sentiment is the only thing that is going to change some of the crazy behavior in Washington. I mean, keep in mind, look, Abraham Lincoln said this before, public sentiment is everything. Without it, you're doomed. With it, you can succeed. So that's where we're at. We're at this point where public sentiment is the only thing I think that is going to drive Donald Trump away from doing bad things. He has to hear it from people. I know a lot of you have been protesting and have done things, with me in Rancho and Riverside and San Bernardino and Redlands and around the communities. We need to continue to do those. We need to continue to take action and make our voices heard. In addition to the polling, that's how we can stand up, and that's how we can make our voices heard.
The labor stats leader. Okay, so I know that maybe I'm the only one in the room on this one, but I'm really concerned about the fact that person was fired because the president didn't seem to like the report that came out. And I think that this is something that many people say is a big indicator of the end of democracy. So I don't know if you feel that same way, but can you talk about?
I don't know if I want to say that the Commissioner of Bureau of Labor Statistics is like the line in between us and the democracy. But I will say this is just one other example where the truth doesn't matter for me, right? Data is data, truth is truth, right? Like, it doesn't matter to Republicans. They don't want to know what the actual numbers are. They want somebody to just walk in and to say, hey, everything's going great, boss. Like, that's what they want. He wants to surround himself with a bunch of people who say, hey, things are great. And when someone has actual data that says people are struggling, people are hurting, right? That's the person he wants to fire. This is the reason why he only surrounds himself with sycophants and crazy people, right? Even in the first administration, he surrounded himself with a couple people who would tell him no. Not in this administration. And so that's not lost on any of us either. But look, this is gonna be tough because Now, we're left with this impression, and rightfully so, that anything that they put out, anything the White House puts out based in data, you should be hugely skeptical of. Probably just distrusting, but very skeptical of.
Yeah.
And so I'm not willing to endorse any data that they put out. And so that's why we're gonna have to look to outside experts and outside groups who are doing this. Thankfully, some of these things have been going on for a long time. The manufacturing index, and consumer price index, all these things are tried and true. And the stock market kind of believes those as well. And so that's the important point. That's the important point to take there as well. So I think that this is going to be an opportunity where we're just going to have to be deeply distrusting of of the data that's coming out, and hopefully Republicans will, in the Senate, will confirm someone for that job who is willing to be president.
Okay, so let's talk about the Middle East a little bit. We were shocked by some of the photos that came out recently, and the reporting on the mass starvation that we're seeing in Gaza. And so what steps are in place to really end what's happening there in Gaza with the genocide?
Yeah, first I think, what I want to share, I was there recently, with a congressional delegation. I'm asking a lot of these tough questions of the leaders in Israel, specifically. First, let's not forget 1,300 people, Hamas, crossed the border and savagely, brutally killed 1,300 people in Israel. Babies, decapitations, sexual assaults. Now, we need to also separate innocent Palestinians who are living in that region with Hamas, who are violent perpetrators and terrorists. They are not the same. They are not the same. And innocent Palestinians, we need to work with, and we need to look out for, and we need to make sure that they get the peace that they deserve. But there is no place for Hamas in any of this structure. Hamas is a brutal terrorist organization. It needs to be eliminated. Now, there are 50 hostages still there. And so we have to do everything we can to get the hostages safely returned. The discussion has been half of them are alive and half of them are dead. That's what is been in the public space. For those family members who have a loved one that has died, that is there, they need the ability to bury that loved one. And for the people who are living, we need to get them back home. There needs to be lasting peace. And the only way we have lasting peace is a two-state solution in that region. I've been a supporter of the two-state solution. I will continue to be a supporter of the two-state solution. By the way, this trip I went on in Israel, we sat down with the Palestinian Authority Prime Minister as well. So we got to ask him tough questions about what he's doing to ensure more peace in the region. This is a new regime. This Prime Minister and his cabinet have only been in place since March, but we had an opportunity to be forceful with him and to ask him about aid as well. We also met with 3 humanitarian groups who are doing aid: the World Food Program done by the UN, the Gaza Humanitarian Fund, which is this kind of Israel and U.S. group that I am deeply distrustful of, but they are the show in town, to be honest with you. They are the one that has the support of our governments. And so we need to try to find a way to make them more successful. And then Kodak, which is the Israeli entity that is responsible for surging aid and ensuring that the trucks get in. More trucks are getting in today than there were last month. That is a good thing. It is trucks of food, it is trucks of water and medicine. Right now there are 4 Gaza Humanitarian Fund locations that could scale up to 8 or 16. None of them are close enough for me, close enough to Gaza City, which is where most of the aid needs to be distributed. Some of the pictures, I want to be very honest with you, some of the pictures you've seen
are kids who have diseases at birth. And so some of those images, as frightening as they are, these are kids who have had diseases for years and years. There is a difference between famine, starvation, and extreme hunger. And I don't want to it's not up to me, I'm not a medical expert, but I know there is extreme hunger that is in that region. And Gaza is tiny. Gaza as a region is incredibly small, 2 million people there. We need to do everything we can as a U.S. to surge humanitarian assistance to the region. And I don't care what that looks like. More trucks, more trips, more cargo coming out of the sky. It doesn't matter. Trucks is what really matters. The amount of food that you can put on a truck is much better. They also have these pouches that they are giving that are made in the U.S. that have like extreme calorie. You can't, when you're going through malnutrition, you're extreme hunger, you don't need a box of food, right? You need like sugar water, electrolytes, you need to build back up, and then you need flour and rice and these building blocks. And so I'm concerned that we're not doing the building blocks. But I do feel in the coming weeks, the attention that the world is paying to this is helpful and is ensuring that more aid goes to the region. But again, I want to kind of start where I finished. We need to be very comfortable, and in fact, we need to embrace that we can support and love the Israeli people and support the Jewish state of Israel while being deeply frustrated and being able to call out their governmental leaders is not doing enough. Their government is not doing enough. And we told
they're doing a
the
lot.
highest levels of their government that they weren't doing enough.
Thank you. And Bobby Joe from Fontana says that given your recent trip to Israel, are there any plans for to visit Gaza and to ensure aid is getting to the people that we just talked about?
I hope I answered a little bit of that. We went to Ramallah. We met with the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah. That was safe to do. I led a member delegation in a caravan to do that. It was unsafe to go to Gaza. We went to the Gaza envelope, it's called. So we went to the outside region overlooking the Gaza Strip. We took a tour of Be'eri, which is a kibbutz, less than a kilometer away from the border. This kibbutz, we got a tour from the individual who lives there. Both of his neighbors were killed on October 7th. And he walked us through and showed the devastation, the burnings that had happened, and the people who survived, and he shared those stories. By the way, this individual also shared, he said, my neighbor, they are so hopeful for peace. And the people that live, it's interesting, the people that live closest to Gaza were the ones who were the most hopeful for peace. He talked about his neighbor would go to the checkpoint and take Palestinians from Gaza pre-October 7th to the hospital. She'd drive them to the hospital, they'd get their care, and then she'd drive them back. And she got brutally murdered by Hamas on October 7th. This kind soul, this person. There was also someone who asked, if he wished he would have had a firearm that day. And this was asked by a Republican. And he said, a firearm? He said, it never occurred to me. He said, actually, we're gonna go take a walk down the street and I'm gonna show you. There was one guy who had a firearm, he died. Right, like, the guns alone aren't gonna save them. And so he talked about how hopeful he was for peace, but it made my heart feel better because he wants to rebuild there. They're rebuilding those facilities.
That's called colonization.
He wants his family to grow up there. He wants his kids to love and appreciate. And they've been displaced since October 7th, but they want to be there. We went to Ashkud, which is the port that is closest to Gaza, and we met with the UN. And we talked with them about how they're getting food aid. And by the way, the UN is not perfect here either. much of the food aid that they are sending does not get to its final destination, and that is a problem. The UN believes, as I think we all do, right, that like people surging aid the aid should just get there. The problem is, there are looters, and there is Hamas who are intercepting this, and there are people who are just very desperate, right, who are innocent people who aren't Hamas, who are just incredibly desperate trying to get that aid as well. And so as a result, a significant portion of the aid that the UN is sending does not get to its final destination. And so we have to figure out how to, and from a policy side, Bobby Joe, this is what we were pushing, is how do we secure distribution lanes and channels so aid can get to where it needs to go? So Hamas or individuals who are well-meaning can't get to that aid and can come down a safe corridor, come to a distribution center, and then people can come and get that aid and that food. And so securing those distribution lanes was a big focus of our discussion. I'm happy to go back to the region. I'm happy to go to Gaza, and if it was a smaller delegation, they might have let us. But I'm going to continue to reach out and work with the Palestinian Authority, the humanitarian organizations, the NGOs, as well as the government of Israel to make sure that we surge aid and we do everything we can for the region. By the way, one other quick point. The U.S. put $30 million into this Gaza humanitarian fund that is an organization I don't quite like right now. But they only put that money in because they have shuttered USAID. Yeah, right? They closed USAID, and all the people around the world who can actually do this, who actually know what it's like to get food into tough areas, the administration has fired and let go. And so we also told the ambassador to the U.S. In Israel that we wanted more transparency on those dollars. We needed to ask tough questions about how that money is being distributed. So that was a summary of what we learned in the region. Thank you for the question.
I'm going to switch to have a couple of cards from people who they feel that they're discouraged with the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
To say the least, or at least they were when they wrote this. Maybe.
Still am.
But Asher in Fontana says, I don't believe in voting, but I do believe in people. Help me to believe that I'm assuming you or Democrats will meet the moment.
Yeah. Look, my job isn't to convince you that the Democratic Party is right in everything that we do. My job is to be your voice and your spokesperson for this region, and to always have your back and to advocate for you. Now, as Democrats, as a party, I've said this: we've got to do more. We've got to do better. And I also told you just a little bit ago, it isn't enough to say, vote for us, we're not Donald Trump. That isn't enough. We have to tell people how we're lowering the costs that they face, how we're going to end the tariffs on and off and the craziness that is driving up their costs. We need to tell them that we support the child tax credit, that would put more money into their pockets every month, not just for those people who file their taxes in April, but every month. Like, remember the check that you got during COVID, for families? Like, those types of things can be done with policy. Those are the types of things we can do when we control the levers of government. And I think we spent too much time over the past few years pointing to amazing successes that were creating big jobs all over the country. And these infrastructure projects, all these things are great. And all of those projects are tied to real jobs that are in those communities. But it's tough to get excited as a Democrat, as a friend, as a neighbor. It's tough to get excited about an infrastructure project halfway around the country, right? When you're struggling, when your rent is going up, when your kids are asking for school supplies and you can't afford it, when teachers are having to put more out of pocket to help the kids in their classroom succeed because their families are struggling. Like, this is real life in the Inland Empire. And there are kids who get their meals at school on Friday, and don't get another meal until they go back to school on Monday. We have to come to terms with that reality. And so those families that we're trying to reach, we have to talk about issues that matter to them. We have to talk about improving their life and making sure that we're doing everything we can so their kids can reach the full potential that they see. And until we do that, and I think that that's grounded in jobs, it's grounded in healthcare, it's grounded in these pillars that we hold dear as Democrats, but we have to talk about affirmative agenda and what that means in order to drive it home and to get their support and to convince them that we have a better plan than the other team.
Okay. And then Melinda in Yucaipa is concerned that when she looks around the room, she doesn't see many young people. And
Hi, 30. Is that enough?
First, I want to say in my defense that we did invite the Young Dems, all of the Young Dem clubs to come to this. But again, for people that feel like there's not something for the Democratic Party isn't offering something for everyone, what would you say for young people?
For young people specifically,
Yeah.
right, we need them to reach their full potential. They need to know that we will support them, whether they want to continue to go to school, whether they want to open up a business, right? Those are the things, they need to see us support them. And right now, I don't feel that they see us supporting them.
Nope.
Or they feel lectured to that college is the only thing that they need. College is great. College is for some people. College isn't for everybody. And so we need to be clear with young people. I also feel this generation, I'm just, this isn't anything, look, I got no notes up here, I got no talking points. This generation also lived through COVID. And I think that still kind of sits with them. I think they still remember what that's like and the frustration that they felt to have a year and a half with less people around. And I do think that we have to let them know that we're going to continue to look out for them. That we took those policies for their health and their well-being and their safety. But people still, let's be honest, people still feel that it wasn't the right thing to stay as close as we were for as long as we were. And I think young people feel that too. But more than anything, young people want to feel supported and that we are cheering for their success. We want to remove their barriers for their success, no matter what they do. They are so innovative and they are so smart, and they are entrepreneurial, right? And they have all these ideas, and we need to be the party that says, great, how do we do that? Let's do that. How can we help you achieve your full potential? Whether that's going to school or running a business or serving in the military or doing something in our communities, or hopefully, if this program isn't shuttered, something like AmeriCorps, right? Where a young person can go for a year or two, they can provide service back into their community or a community around the country. Those are the types of programs we need to lift up, and I think only when young people feel that we actually have their back and look out for them, they just feel disaffected. And as a result, I think that they just kind of tune out. It isn't that they dislike us, it's just that they tune out. It's just that they do other things with their life. We aren't giving them a reason to engage. And so I think we've got to do that. We've got to find out, and that means talking to them and finding out what they want, how we can be successful. For my part, I also want to make sure that we're delivering good paying jobs here in Inland Empire. We don't need young people to be our largest export out of the region. We don't want young people to leave. Some of them want to leave, and that's fine, whether they go to school or they work in another county or something, that's fine. We need to try to keep them here. We need to keep them here as long as we can, so they have an opportunity to raise their families in this community that we feel is so special.
Okay, so we're gonna switch gears, Jeffrey Epstein. So, I know there's a lot of questions, there were some questions, on that. So the Speaker of the House sent you all home, early so that he wouldn't have to take any votes. And so when you go back, is there a plan for Democrats to keep the pressure on? That's the first part of my question. The second part of my question, and is there a plan to put more focus on the victims rather than on the perpetrators?
Yeah, this is such a weird Washington DC issue right now. But yeah, the speaker would rather, and Donald Trump, whenever you see him angry and tweeting a bunch of stuff, it's likely because people are talking about him in this case, right? The speaker sent us home because he didn't want the ability for us to collect signatures to force a bill that would release some of the documents. Look, we need to just release these documents. The president, his son, all these people around him, when they were campaigning, said that this was an issue and that they would release these documents. And now they're in power and they can't actually do something, and they choose not to. And so it does smell a little weird. But you're right, that the focus needs to be on those victims, and some of them are willing to talk, and many of them aren't. And so that is a balance as well. But at a minimum, they should release the documents. There's no conspiracy here. And the committees should work to interview, use subpoena power to interview this woman who now Trump put in a minimum security prison in a different state, right? Like, are we in a position to believe what she says now that he's trying to make her life a little better, right? To try to get her to say something probably. So that's what we have to go back to. It is our anticipation that we're going to force a vote, or continue to force a vote on releasing all of these documents. It puts our colleagues in a tailspin, and that's part of the joy.
Okay, and Melissa from Fontana said that in a recent town hall, you seem to express skepticism in the impact of efforts like writing postcards to voters that many grassroots groups are doing. What do you think is the best way that grassroots groups can make an impact right now?
No, I look, make calls, make postcards. I don't think that that's fair to say I was skeptical. Sometimes I do think, just from our office perspective too, you view something different if it's a constituent versus a non-constituent. So sometimes non-constituents reaching out to other areas, I'm worried that doesn't have the impact that we want it to have, right? Because it's easy to dismiss a postcard I get from somebody in Tennessee, right? Who says, I'm doing wrong and I'm terrible, the country's gonna end because you guys elected me. So, right, writing letters to your elected officials, writing postcards to your elected officials to try to get them to change their minds is helpful. Now, I do think postcards and those pieces are helpful on the political side, right? Writing a postcard to someone who lives in Arizona in a swing district to say, hey, I'm in California and I hope that you vote for Democrat X because they're not gonna take your health care away. And it's so important for me that I wanted to drop you a line, like those types of things. Making phone calls to voters out of district, out of state makes sense to me. And I think that's where we should channel our energy is on the political side and reaching out to folks who represent different areas.
Okay. This on a different subject. What can be done to repair the damage of the closing down or the unfunding of the Department of Education, CDC, all of these important institutions that have disappeared now?
Some of this is being litigated, and thankfully in California, we have leaders and we have a structure that isn't completely reliant on federal resources, but it is a significant piece. It's around 10% of your school district funding is the federal share. But the president would like that to go away. Our job is to make sure that it stays. And we're going to use every tool necessary, court cases, litigation, forcing their hand. In all of these areas, Centers for Disease Control, all these cuts that they're trying to do, we have passed funding legislation that funds these groups and organizations and departments. And what they're trying to do is to write their own rules for funding government. And that's wrong, and it's against the law. And so we're gonna continue to push back at every opportunity, but it's also, excuse me, it's also a reason why we're unlikely to have a government funding deal, because Republicans think that they can work with us on a government funding deal, and we're telling them, I will agree to engage in a government funding deal, but you gotta spend the money that we agreed to. This is the first time since Nixon, and that led to the Common Control Act, but the first president since Nixon where, Mario, I'll pick on you, where we might be in a room and I'll say, I'm a Democrat, I wanna spend $10 on this program. And Mario's gonna say, well, I wanna spend $6 on this program. Well, guess what we normally do in Washington? Generally kind of meet in the middle at around $8, right? But this is the first time ever where we have a deal like that, and then the president comes and says, we're gonna spend $4. Like, wait, no, we had a deal. That's the law. We're gonna spend $8. You can't just spend $4. And so we're suing him because that's what he's doing. And now, as a result, when we're having conversations, how can I trust that this is because some of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle, they're not speaking up. They're not saying a deal is a deal. They're not saying we approved this last year. They're just kind of quiet. So.
Let's vote them out.
So that's, yeah, look, let's vote them out, absolutely. But in the meantime, I don't know if we're gonna get to a deal. And so we've told them, look, you're the majority. Go find the votes. If you wanna fund government, go find the votes, but don't come to us. And we did that in March, remember? House Democrats stood and said no. It was the Senate who then, passed the deal. So we're gonna continue to stand firm and to say, no, we're not putting any deal in place to fund CDC, Department of Ed, national parks, all these entities, unless you actually honor the deal that we agreed to. And so there might be a little turmoil in DC in September and October, because we're holding pretty firm on that. And so our hope is that Republicans actually live by the deals that they agree to. Unfortunately, they have proven untrustworthy to do that.
So some of us who listen to NPR, watch PBS, are very concerned about the lack of funding, and Jim in Chino Hills wants to know what can we do to help save those public media?
Yeah, look, I love Corporation for Public Broadcasting and NPR. I mean, the fact that they are going after these entities, and in the grand scheme of what we spend, this is so small. This is so small. It is so punitive. And the people that this hurts, many times, the only place they can get news in rural communities is through these efforts. And so what we have to hope as a group is that these organizations and entities continue to hold on, that they just hold on for a couple of years, and that we can have an opportunity to fund them and bring them back to life. That's what we have to do. So when they do their campaigns and they ask you for $40 and $50 and all that stuff, I mean, let's all try to help out, because let's try to keep the wheels on the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and these groups until, unfortunately, some of them have said that they're going to have to go under. We just have to try to hope that we can, turn this around when we have an opportunity to lead.
So we have people that are running in, by the current districts, we have people that are running in against Republicans, and they're wondering for Congress, and they're can you talk about what it is that congressional Democrats do to help win those seats?
Sure. When we're thinking about this, and I've seen this on a number of areas, right? You guys were with me. I flipped a Republican-held seat in 2014. A lot of you here
worked to help us do that. So I know what it's like to flip a seat, to raise my hand and ask for help from the party. And it's never enough. It's never as much as you think it's gonna be. But the party will focus, and I'll speak specifically for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, will focus on those races that we can flip and that we can win. And it is a tough sport and a tough game that we're in. And some of these districts, we're not gonna flip. We're gonna get less support if the party doesn't feel that we can flip them. Right now, what's in front of us, look, we're focused all our time and attention on this campaign toward November to end this reading of line drawing. So that's gonna be our focus right now. And as a result of that, there will be fewer opportunities. There'll be fewer kind of swing opportunities. And so I think we're gonna focus in this area, the kind of Palm Springs down to San Diego will be a swing district. But an area like Overlook is probably won't be a swing district. Right? It would take a mammoth undertaking in order to get that seat. And I just want to be super honest with all of you. That doesn't mean that it can't happen. It means that it would be incredibly hard, and we have to focus the limited resources we have on flipping the seats that are possible.
Make Overlook to spend
And
money.
so we'll continue, but look, I'll offer advice and support. My biggest advice to people thinking about running is, you just gotta build support, right? You have to build support every single way. You gotta get on the phone and you gotta call people who can host fundraisers, people who can write you a small check, people who can introduce you to 20 friends, right, to pass out lawn signs, people who can introduce you to 15 people who will knock on doors. Every call you make should have a purpose, and the purpose should be helping you communicate your message, get your message out, and raise awareness toward the issues that you're doing. And it is a tough gig. And believe me, I've been trapped in a room making phone calls, asking people for things, and it is not easy. And if there was a better way to do it, what we would do it. I believe there's a better way to do it. I helped pass HR 1, right, which would give dark money out of campaigns. So I believe in campaign finance reform. I also don't believe in fighting with one hand behind my back. And if Republicans are gonna play by the laws, then we gotta play by these laws. And our ideals are great, but only until we're all playing by the same set of rules. Like we make a change. We shouldn't be allowed to disarm or change what we're doing or what we can do, and let them run amok and do things that we just are unwilling to do. So.
Well, this has been a great conversation. We're down to our last question here. So Melissa in Fontana wants to know, says that the GOP has done a lot to stack the courts with extremist activist judges. And she's asking, will the Democratic caucus stand together to block some of these appointments going forward? Sometimes we see Democrats that are voting for these appointments and we don't understand it.
Yeah, it's a good question. The House Democratic Caucus, we don't vote on judges, right? The Senate votes on judges. And right now there's 53 Republicans in the Senate. And so if 50 of them agree, then that's what they do. It can be the most extreme judge or appointment ever, and they can lose 3 votes and still pass it with no Democrats supporting it. This is a pretty polarizing time. I don't see a lot of Democrats raising their hands, even in the Senate, specifically my senators, Adam Schiff and Alex Padilla. I don't see a lot of them supporting these appointments. We need to make sure that other Democrats also kind of hold that line as well. It's incredibly important. They are going to try to pack the court with extremists. These are like 40-year-old judges who are getting lifetime appointments, right? And it is strictly based on ideology, not on the law. And so for people who want to interpret, for people who want to follow the law, that's fine. But these are folks who are just guided only by their ideology. So I'll do my part, and we will lift this up. But the House Democratic Caucus absolutely feels that we should be putting partisan hats in these lifetime appointment positions. That's unfortunate, and when we're given the tools, and the opportunity to lead, we should look at, how we level that playing field. And that starts, by the way, with ending this kind of culture of corruption. I got into a little trouble because I came out early on and said, we need to ban stock trading by members of Congress. Alicia's not here. She gave me a hard time. I love my bride. She's like, we don't own any stocks. You're not giving up anything. Yeah, but nobody should. But look, there are members who are trading stocks. There's this guy in Pennsylvania who was trading healthcare stocks, like right before he voted to get rid of healthcare, right, based on things that he heard. I mean, like, this is crazy. The president should be allowed to have a little meme coin and trade right? And the court needs to have real ethics rules. Right? I'm willing to engage in a debate on growing the Supreme Court. I'm willing to do just about anything at this point, right? But at a minimum, we need to have a code of ethics in the Supreme Court that they actually follow. And that means, Clarence Thomas, no more private jets, no more free RVs, and all this other crap that they do. And for somebody that engages in that, there need to be real consequences.
Yeah.
Right? Like they have been elevated to the highest court in the land. Like, we're not saying they can't be a judge. Maybe we just tell them you can't be a judge here. Right? So that's what we need to be prepared to do as a caucus, as a community, and as a country. Thank you for the time and attention.